If you feel like you're a burden to people, you might be operating off of the core wound of reciprocity. So let's dive in and figure out what this is all about, because my people pleasers, empaths, ones who always say yes, this one is definitely for you. Let's go. Okay. First and foremost, there are 5 main core wounds that every single issue that people have in humanity today boils down to every single time. And once you can see which one it belongs to, it's really easy to know exactly what tools, behavioral modifications, and what we need to do in the energy field to clean it up and to heal from whatever cascade effect or kind of like the downfall is that it's causing within both the spiritual body and the physical body. But reciprocity is one of those ones that I find people have a hard time identifying, because they tend to really look at it just as this give take, as in we need to always be in balance. So if you give me $50, at some point, I need to give you $50 back. If you do this one thing for me and you help me move, I have to help you move if you ever do, right? And we tend to look at it as this complete balance of scales. And that's not really what sacred reciprocity actually is.
Yeah, we bring in this level of like indebtedness to it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is not actually sacred reciprocity. It's actually balancing scales, right? And playing with karma and a little bit of the he said, she said balance, right? So yes, it can be physical giving and receiving. That is absolutely an art form. You know, how many of us are really good at receiving gifts or compliments or people letting us know that we've been really amazing or helpful with something? It can come in the form of gifts, and that's even an art form to receive them well, even if you don't like them. Oh my God. I remember, this is just
Like,
total tangent. I think I was like maybe 9 years old. And do you remember back then, I would have been like 1994-ish. I don't know, I can't do math, but somewhere in there. And those hangers that everybody was like braiding all the silk around, and they kind of had like that woven look.
mhm.
Well, it was Christmas that year, and we were at my mama's house, so that our grandma. And you know what I got for Christmas?
What?
Woven lingerie hangers and musk soap. And I remember my mom shooting me this look like, you better have gratitude, because I mean, her family grew up in an era where, you know, they didn't have a lot. She had 7 siblings, they were poor, you know, it was, if you got anything as a gift, you were so grateful because mom and dad managed to scrimp and save fun and find you anything. And I can remember her shooting me this look and being like,
Don't say anything.
and so I like picked up the hanger, and I distinctly remember this, and I hugged it to my chest, and I'm like, I love it. And then I was like smelling the soap, and I was like, so nice. Anyways, so gifts are one of those things that sometimes, no matter how hard you try, people are going to see it written in your energy field and on your face, but it's just maybe not the thing that landed for you.
Oh my
And
God, this is making me think of the people who like one day they see an owl statue and they're like, oh, that's kind of cute. And then all of a sudden,
yeah,
every gift they get from everybody is an owl thing and they look like a crazy owl person or whatever.
that's my husband's grandma. Like, she started the owl thing. So funny.
Or whatever animal figurine
Yeah.
it was for you. But I think we all know somebody, or maybe you are somebody who that's happened to.
Right. Anyways, we digress. Let's come back on track here, because otherwise we could go down crazy storytelling forever. Um, but sacred reciprocity also comes in an unexpected way in our awakening and self-development journeys that nobody thinks about. And that's in the form of insights and inspiration.
Ooh.
Yeah. Most people go give, take, money, compliments, love. But they forget that information is also an exchange gateway.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh. And this is a big one for this core wound that people never go to the core root of to heal. And most people's reciprocity core wound actually involves an exchange of information where either they were taken for granted, betrayed, or it was used against them sometime in this life or past life.
Huh. I didn't know that.
Yeah, right. I work with clients on this a lot, because they'll come to me and they'll say to me something like, no matter what I do, I'm always the one to have to chase and call my friends. If I don't keep in contact, nobody calls me and asks me to do anything. If I'm struggling financially, people are still trying to tap me for the money, right? And so they'll come and they'll say, I have some kind of problem. And they usually tell me it's with their heart chakra, because that's what people associate with giving and receiving, but it's way more multidimensional than that. So destroy and uncreate that. Otherwise, you're never going to heal this. Or they'll say to me, like, I feel like I always have to say yes to people, or else they're not going to like me, or I'm going to get left behind, or they're going to feel like I wasn't there for them. There's all these stories that run, and we'll feel like we're running around in circles. So if this is you and you've been trying to heal these things or change your behaviors on these things and it's just not moving, you're probably looking at this from the wrong angle. And here's your free healing session of the day. I'm just going to throw you this bone. What we actually need to look at is all the things that we've shared that have been used against us. And that's where this core wound sits, both in this life and the Akashic records. And that's where we'll find all the patterns. All these other things I'm explaining are just the symptoms of that core issue. And it's why it never moves for people, because they're trying to pop a pill for why they can't receive more love. They're trying to pop a pill for why they can't say no. And the issue is actually in where their words or actions were retaliated against or became a problem for them.
You're literally blowing my mind in this conversation. I mean, you guys can't see it on the screen right now. But every year I pick 3 words to focus on for the year that just feel like these are my next pieces of awareness, or a new level to step into, or just something that feels really good to me. And one of my words this year is reciprocity, because it's something that I always felt like I didn't quite understand it, or it felt kind of elusive to me. And so I've been on a bit of a journey this year to experience that and figure out what it is. And so as you're saying this, it's just clicking so many, just putting the dots together on some things that I've experienced where I felt like I was giving so much and being so generous to somebody, and then they turned around and they used my words or whatever it was that I did against me. And I don't think I've ever actually healed those. So thank you for bringing that to my awareness.
Yeah, no problem. It's funny how these things sit underneath the surface until you bring it out. And then you're like, holy shnikes, Batman, that's where this is. And it just hits you like you just had an epiphany. I watched your face and you're just like, I didn't even know we were going to go here. And oh my God, that's it. Like, that's it. So anyways, once we have that sitting in our field, we have all of this cascade effect, which is basically the snowball rolling down the hill. So once we have that first event, the body reacts, right? And the mind reacts, and the soul reacts, and our heart reacts. And we have all of these different side effects that come on board because of this one initial issue. Mm-hmm. And so for a lot of my clients that are struggling with this, and Violet, let me know how many of these you relate to, right? They will have trouble gaining or losing weight. Will be a big thing for them. They'll struggle with brain fog, inflammation, swelling, neck and back pain. Carpal tunnel syndrome is another one these guys get all the time. They tend to put themselves in a lot of administrative helping positions that cause them to keep working through pain, is a big one.
You're like telling the story of my life right now. Continue.
Skin rashes, rosacea, acne. And this is another really interesting one. People with almost no sex drive and insatiable sex drives who are just burning through partners. I don't even know if you can call them partners, burning through other bodies like it's nobody's business.
So either side of that coin, you either completely shut off or completely turned on constantly and unable to experience relief from it, I guess. Satisfaction.
Yeah, we could use both of those words. Yeah. So there are all sorts of ways that the body responds to this because it's constantly trying to seek equilibrium. But here's the one it's trying to seek that's actually a false healing pattern, is justice. Yeah. Right? Yeah. So what I find really fascinating about all these clients is, for a period of time at least, and you might not be here anymore because of the amount of work you've done, most of them are seeking some course of retaliation or justice to make sure the scales balance. Mm. But the scale can never balance because the scale doesn't exist.
Okay.
Right? It's just a false element we've built in our mind because we think karma is a very tit for tat conversation that happens in the universe. And
I
that's not
feel
how.
like the opposite side of this for the people who, because there's definitely a core group of people who will be like an eye for an eye, or like I
Yeah.
meet energy, like I match energy, and like I'm gonna, things need to be righted or whatever that is for them. But there's this other side of like putting in these extreme boundaries of like, I'm just saying no to everyone and they can just like stay away from me, basically. That is the one that I did, like with some family members who are constantly like asking me for money and stuff. I would just be like, I'm just going to ignore them. I'm not going to talk to them. They can't ask me for this. I'm like horribly offended every time they do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, whereas I'm at the point now, I have a family member right now who's constantly asking my husband and I for money and support. And the last time they did, I just turned around and I was like, no, it's not something we're interested in doing right now.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Whereas most people are like, I'm just going to hang up the phone, never answer.
Or
I
make up a story or
make up a
whatever.
story.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just no, it's not something we're interested in doing right now. And it doesn't require me to justice or balance anything or to really get into or justify or to really get into a space of having to explain myself or make them see how I see, because that's the sacred reciprocity wound too,
Right.
is you have to be able to understand all of me, right? So this one's really nuanced. It shows up in all of these ways. But at the end of the day, remember, it just comes down to somebody used something you said or did against you. And now it's become a constant seeking for you to try and rebalance the scale.
Okay. So we have to do a little bit of self-reflection, maybe go into our Akashics and see
Yeah.
what's going on, clean some
Yeah.
stuff up.
Reading Akashics from both this life, past life, and everything you have programmed into the future to make sure you change trajectories is the only way through this one. There's no amount of affirmations, clearing statements, things like this that'll get you through. It really is one of those where you have to collapse all of those old archetypes of yourself, release any of the contracts of retaliation that you have, and make sure that any cords you have for people you've pulled through to keep playing it out have all been eradicated as well. So it gets to be a really messy web, but it's actually really simple to heal once you know the steps and kind of the organizational method you use to go through. And we teach that in our beginner level of the You Can Heal Yourself program, but in essence, it's just awareness and then recalibration and then getting back into alignment with what your mission is supposed to be with this lifetime. That's it. That's what it boils down to.
Drop in the drama.
That's right.
Yeah.
The other thing I want to bring up with this one, Violet, is a lot of people have this really interesting thing about going back to that concept of being the burden, asking for help,
Yeah.
and thinking that what they're asking for is too much when really they're just asking the wrong person. And I think you had an experience this week.
Well,
Actually,
I mean, you've seen me walk through this since you've known me, of this like hyper
yeah,
independence. And I've been like trying not to be like that, but the hyper independence, I can do it on my own. I don't want to be a burden to anyone else, and not wanting to ask for help, and kind of just sitting back and waiting for somebody to offer it. So that was kind of my first step, was like, if somebody offers and I need it, then I'm going to learn how to say yes to that. But I would never ask, because that's too much, right? Like that's taking it too far. And I actually had a really beautiful experience with one of our advanced decodes practitioners, who's also a very good friend of mine. And I needed some help clearing my space energetically. I know how to do it, but it's work for me because I don't do it all the time. And I know that she's so good at it. So I finally was just like, you know what? I need help with this. This is just taking way too much of my time. So I reached out and asked her to help me with it. And I was very much like, you can say no, you don't have to. I can pay you. It'll be fine. And if you can't, it's okay. I'll figure it out. Like, I know how to do it. And she was like, dude, just shut up. Like, I'll just do it right now. It's no big deal. And as she was going through it, I had this perception that it was going to take so much concentration and focus and energy output from her. And I kind of was like, if you're done, you can just stop and I can finish it from here. And she's like, I'm doing 3 things at once right now. Like, I don't even have to think about it. It's so easy for me. And that made it totally click in my brain in a completely different way of like, when you ask the right person to help you, it actually takes almost no energy expansion from their point of view. And what actually usually happens for them is they get to help somebody and it actually fills their bucket a little bit. So That had such a major impact on how I view asking for help is no, if you ask the right person, it's probably something that they're just inherently good at or talented with, or they do it all the time to the point where they don't have to think about it. And then I was able to see how I had been projecting my idea of how much work something is onto somebody based on how much work it is for me to do.
Mhm.
So then I was able to look at, oh, there are actually things that I'm really good at that even if I was sick, even if I hadn't slept in 2 days, even if I was distracted by other things, I could actually help somebody with pretty easily because it's just knowledge I just have, or it's a skill that I've perfected and it doesn't take a whole lot of effort, you know? So I think that's a big one that we need to take off is this idea that because it's hard for me to do and I need to ask for help, it therefore must be the same level of hardness for the person that I'm asking. And then subsequently to that is starting to think a little bit better or allowing yourself to be inspired to ask the right person for help.
Mhm. It's a very simple example that I can think of from violentized relationships is if I needed to build a spreadsheet to track a whole bunch of things from our clients, it would take me hours to make it work properly, YouTube videos to figure out how to make all the columns add up how we needed, and it would take Violet 5 minutes. So for me to ask her that, even if she's busy, even if she's sick, even if she's overloaded, she'll fire it off in a few minutes. Whereas for me, it's really hard. But Violet could come back and she's not going to come ask me for a spreadsheet because she created a spreadsheet because she knows I'm the wrong person for that. And she's not going to feel like everything is in sacred reciprocity. It's going to tip those scales and make us feel poorly because we're going to see the struggle somebody's in and we're not going to be satisfied with the work, or we're going to feel like they just couldn't meet our expectations, whatever it is. But if a Violet came back to me and said, Caitlin, I have something running underneath this belief system. I can't figure out why I can't get this next thing in my life to move. It's going to take me like 10 seconds to tap in and figure out what the F is wrong with her. And I don't even have to blink, right? So we need to lead with our strengths and help where we're really strong and then fill in the gaps with people in our community because that helps keep everybody's buckets filled because they're doing what they do best and they know they're needed for very specific things. So here's how I want to paint this in a slightly different light. In relationships, like especially domestic relationships where you're either married or you're in a common law partnership, you're dating, a lot of people are asking things of their partner that are not their inherent superpowers or that they're even capable of. And when that partner can't meet the expectations or deliver on what we perceive they should be giving us, we think our relationships are out of balance and we start blaming the other person for not being 50-50 or 100, however you want to look at that. And we start going, well, they're not showing up to our relationship. They're not, giving me everything I need.
Therefore, they must not care.
Yeah, therefore they must not care. They must not be as invested in me, or they might not love me.
Or they're just not the right person, even.
Yeah, there's another one. When really what it is you suck at seeing their superpowers and asking them for what they can give.
Yeah, and I think this also brings us back to just touching on the whole community aspect is you can't get all of your needs met from one person in the
Nope.
same way that you can't even meet all of your own needs. So I think putting all of that pressure on one other person to be your everything is just setting them and yourself up for failure. And it's really important that we have more than one person in our life that we can go to for different things. It just makes life more enriching too.
Absolutely. So, and I mean, that conversation could go in a million different directions with a million different nuances. I can kind of feel the collective already being like, well, are you saying we should all be in polyamorous and open relationships? And I'm like, no, because then you're actually going back into one of the core wounds of reciprocity, which is ignoring the sacred 0 point that you need to be able to get into deeply with a person. But we're not going to go all the way into that right now. How would I navigate from here forward? Well, number one, we have a couple of resources that we're going to link in the description somewhere around this video or however you're listening to this content today that you can take some of this deeper. But what I would start doing is making a little bit of a timeline or doing a journal entry of where your words or actions have been turned against you and start looking at who was involved and who do they represent to you. Are there Is this showing up in multiple different relationships or multiple different scenarios? Because that's going to start giving you a clue of where this is actually sitting in your energy body for you. It's just going to give you ammo to start healing. And whether you have the tools and know how to do this yourself or not yet, you can start applying that, or you're going to have done some of the legwork and you're going to go so much further if you come work, for example, with one of our decode practitioners. So there you go. I hope you guys heard something helpful in this video today. Drop us a comment below about what stuck out to you and what your takeaways and ahas were. And as always, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We'll have more like this coming out soon.